Hi, my name is Katie Grace Terry, and this is my pedagogy video for the Alabama All-State High School Technical Etude. I'm going to play through it first and then afterwards discuss it a little bit further. Okay, so first I would like to point out some more obvious details of this etude. The first being that the timed signature is in 2/4. The key signature is E flat major and the tempo is at 86 beats per minute. I would also like to point out that there's only one dynamic marking throughout the entire etude, and that is this forte right here at the beginning. So we really want to be sure that we have a nice full sound throughout the entire etude. We don't need to become softer throughout the entire thing. This word up here that's written here is leggero, and that translates over to lightly. So we really want to think about having a light style throughout the entire etude. This is really followed by, like with all these staccato markings right here, that really applies to the lightly style. I really like to think of, what I picture in my mind is a ballerina, and she's in her pointe shoes, and she's on the stage and she's dancing to the Nutcracker Suite. We know that is a very light song, and so that's kind of what I picture in my mind in order to be able to convey that style throughout the entire etude. So really think light, open up your mouth, drop your jaw, and use the very tip of your tongue to tongue each note so that they will each be precise, clear, and light. The next thing I would like to talk about are parts where it's not labeled staccato, maybe here and this whole section right here in these half notes, anytime when it's longer. You still want to think light, but really open up and use vibrato in those sections. If you're able to make them slightly more legato and use vibrato, that will add contrast to this etude in those parts. So really think about making those parts pretty and using vibrato and not shrill, but still think light while you're doing those parts. The next thing I would like to encourage is that anytime you come down to the lower register of the flute, such as here, or maybe here, or I know we kind of go down here or here, really crescendo down into the lower register of the flute. As flute players, it's our tendency to want to die down and play a little bit weaker when we get down to those lower registers just because it's harder to get. But really think of, if you think crescendoing down, then that forte dynamic will be able to be maintained. So really think about that as you're doing it. The next thing that I would like to talk about are turns, and we have several turns in this etude. There's one here, 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 and that's signified by the little infinity sign right here. And so basically the way you would play those is if you would start off in the original note indicated, which for example in this case would be an E flat. Then what you do is you start on the E flat, then you'd go up a scale degree to the F, back down to the E flat, down to a lower scale degree, which would be a D, and then back up to the E flat. So that's how you play a turn. And some of these turns, such as here, here, and here, you'll see that there are accidental markings underneath the turn sign. And so basically what that means is that the lowest note in the turn, that would be the note that the accidental gets applied to. So basically, for example, for this, it would start off with a B flat, go up to a C, back down to the B flat, and then when you go down to the A, that is where the accidental gets applied. So instead of an A flat, you play an A natural, and then back up to the B flat. The next thing I'd like to talk about is just really subdividing. And a lot of places, like especially where we get into all these runs, it's going to be very important that you subdivide during these parts. You really want to be sure that each septuplet and this section, you want to be sure that it's all even and rhythmically accurate. That's going to be very important as you play this piece. Another thing that's going to be important is using correct articulation. We see that there's a lot of places where you have to tongue and you have to slur, and so really pay attention to articulation. If you are able to do that, it will make you stand out from other players if you can articulate correctly, especially in this section right here where it gets kind of crazy. In this part right here, I'm really having to trill fast. I'm really only getting about 1 trill in for these 8th note trills, and I think that's okay to just stay in time. So really think about staying in time. The last thing that I would like to encourage you to do is to really, don't be afraid to break this piece up into small parts and work with them before you put the entire piece together. If you take the entire piece as a whole, there's a good chance that it might not be quite as rhythmically accurate. So really don't be afraid to break up this etude into small parts before putting it all together. Thank you so much. This is all that I have for this etude.